I miss the soundboard already.
Yeah, it's empty without it.
Yeah, we're fine. It was kind of a technical nightmare to get set up. If I bought more expensive equipment, I could get it working flawlessly, but it's just like, do I need it?
Now, how are we supposed to live without something filling every natural pause in conversation?
Real crap shit.
Like those fucking TikToks where it's just anyone talking, and in the background it's like someone doing a GTA stunt course, and then in the corner it's like someone slicing a banana in a weird way.
Yeah, it's 2023. If we're not overstimulated, we're understimulated.
Exactly.
Long live the new flesh.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, hit it!
Hello and welcome to Swimfans, the stimulating podcast. I'm your co-host, Josh. Still kind of has a crush on Matt Dillon. Mackenzie.
I'm Craig. Do you know what a eunuch is? Neeson.
She can't even bowl. I'm Alex Hawking.
This week on the pod, we are talking 1995 Gus Van Sant film To Die For. So if you've not seen To Die For, we have quite the star-studded cast. Nicole Kidman in the lead role, Joaquin Phoenix, Matt Dillon, Swimfans All-Star, Ileana Douglas.
All-stars everywhere in this, really.
Yeah, the cast is pretty poppin', but it's mostly Nicole Kidman. She plays Suzanne Stone. She is a young woman who has always been obsessed with being on television. It is her dream to be the person giving you the news on TV. She marries Larry Moretto, played by Matt Dillon, and right away, Matt Dillon's dead. Larry Moretto's been shot. So the movie takes place cutting quite seamlessly between the present day, the past, the farther past, etc. It jumps around quite a bit. But she marries Larry, whose family runs an Italian restaurant, and she gets a job at a local cable station. She berates Newman into giving her the job of the weather girl at the TV station. But Larry, he wants to focus on the restaurant. He wants to have a family. So he essentially asks Suzanne to compromise her sociopathic ambition. And that's when Suzanne begins to plot to get rid of him. Because she is aiming for bigger and better things, she tries to make a documentary where she is interviewing students at a local high school. And she makes friends with three kids played by Joaquin Phoenix, Casey Affleck, and Allison Folland. So she begins making her documentary, Teens Speak Out. But while she's doing that, she is also kind of seducing James, Joaquin Phoenix's character, and coercing the other two by other means. Like, for instance, Suzanne is like very nice to Lydia, who doesn't seem to have many like older authority figures in her life. So she is kind of like a big sister figure to Lydia and sort of gives her like a friend and support. And, she begins having sex with Joaquin Phoenix's character and eventually manipulates him into murdering her husband, Larry. Larry's death is ruled the result of a botched burglary attempt, but the cops take the tapes from the TV station and they find sort of like a wink and a nod to Suzanne's relationship with these kids in her tapes that she's making. All of the three kids are arrested and they make Lydia wear a wire. And while Lydia's wearing the wire, Suzanne sort of like tips her hand in planning the murder. At trial, Suzanne argues that this is entrapment. There was police entrapment and the charges are dropped. Sort of enjoying her time in like the national stage, she spins the story about how Larry was like a coke addict and the children were were his dealers and were killed because he wanted to like stop doing coke, I guess. And so Jimmy and Russell are sentenced to life in prison. Lydia's on parole. And you realize sort of near the end of the film here that this interview, because there's a lot of much of the movie is like these talking head interview segments, and there's a recurring one of Suzanne, and she is sort of telling her story, and you learn at the end of the film that she is telling her story to no one. She is speaking to sort of a video camera she has put in her own living room, and she is wrapping up the interview, and she is taking the tape to a big Hollywood producer. As she delivers the movie to the producer's not a producer at all, but a hitman hired by Larry's parents in like a mob hit, and she is murdered by the hitman. in the last two scenes of the movie, it's an interview segment with Lydia where she says, it's ironic that I'm the one who's going to be famous now because she's going on like the daytime talk show, like Sally, Jesse, Raphael, and Oprah, like circuit. And in the final scene of the movie, Ileana Douglas, who plays Larry's sister, she's a professional ice skater, and she is skating on the frozen river where Suzanne's body was dumped. What did we think about this, To Die For?
The only thing I'll say that you missed, and it wasn't immediately apparent to me until like later on, but the hitman is actually played by David Cronenberg.
Oh my god.
Oh, shut up. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I'll go first. I thought that this was To Die For.
Hey.
See what I did there?
Yeah.
No, I loved this. I adored this movie. I found it instantly captivating. I love Nicole Kidman's performance in this movie. I loved Joaquin Phoenix's performance in this movie. All the performances were just really great. But what I found most compelling, and we can talk about this in more detail, but like this movie is edited so good. I love the way that it skips around time. It feels completely fluid. You're never like lost or confused about what's happening when. Mm-hmm. It's just so, without trying too hard, it feels really kinetic. I just really like it. It's supposed to be like a satirical black comedy. I would say, like, even for a black comedy, it's not like very funny. But I think that it's acted well and it's interesting enough that I didn't really miss like the comedy to it. Yeah, I thought this was a blast. I loved this.
Yeah, it's interesting. There are a lot of jokes here, and it is essentially, if you were to kind of put it on paper, it would be dark comedy, but there isn't a lot of laughing one does, or at least I didn't. But it's great. I mean, I think it strikes a really interesting tonal balance that I've not seen replicated anywhere. Just because the idea of a dark comedy feels like tired to me, and I always feel like there's, the very obvious like embedded like social commentary or whatever. This is, like Josh said, kinetic, and it doesn't have like a rut that it gets stuck in. It's like vibrant and colorful. The camera is constantly like dancing around and being expressive. You're seeing this Nicole Kidman character just like enter the stage as like maybe like benign delusion, and then exiting the stage as like a violent, just insane person. It's wonderful. I think it's forgive me, I haven't seen this movie since I was like 13 years old. But I remember the message from like Requiem for a Dream being like, TV bad, you want to be in it, that's bad.
Yeah. It's as bad as big as my man's brain gets.
Yeah, and it's just like that movie is a misery parade, and I don't ever want to see it again. This was very, very thoughtful. I think that there is some kind of interesting through line here, or a reflection about this like type of person, and also this type of game that one finds oneself in, wanting to like succeed in America, and what it means to succeed in America, which could be like a really trite thing, but it's not here. I think much like Election, the film reminds me of that. That's another one that's like tonally kind of very interesting and also well executed. So I'm not very familiar with Gus Van Sant's work, so this is kind of like my introduction in a way, and I'm very impressed.
Yeah, I loved all the like formalist kind of tricks that are in this movie. Like you see footage of like TV recordings and newspaper headlines, and like the jumping back and forth. Structurally, not really content wise, reminds me a lot of like Citizen Kane, of like the way it uses different, like, now you're watching a newsreel, now you're here's a headline on a newspaper, and it's not afraid to get kind of weird with it, and I really appreciated that about it, and like everyone's performances in it are amazing. It reminded me a lot of Nightcrawler, of obviously tonally completely different, but sort of like the ruthless American spirit on display here felt really kind of hand in hand with that. Like I would imagine this would probably be a big influence on Nightcrawler. Yeah, all the satire stuff really worked for me. There's the most obvious point in the movie is when Nicole Kidman is walking outside to the like news media, all setting up outside of her house while the fucking national anthem starts blaring.
That rocked.
It was so good. I was barking and clapping like a seal for that whole part. It wasn't really the movie I thought it was going to be based on the synopsis, but I think I liked this one more than that hypothetical movie. I also am not familiar at all with Gus Van Sant's work. I think I've seen most of Finding Forrester, which I didn't remember caring for very much. Though I did like the website You're the Man Now Dog. That's about the extent of my engagement with the legacy of Gus Van Sant.
I'm sorry, what does he have to do with that? What is YTMND?
You know, the phrase "You're the Man Now, Dog" is from Finding Forrester, which is a Gus Van Sant film.
Okay.
So my man inadvertently created a whole like limb of internet culture in the 2000s.
Weird.
I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I really want to do My Own Private Idaho on this podcast. That's the only other Van Sant film I've seen. And it actually stars the other Phoenix. It's got River Phoenix in it. River Phoenix and Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
I've heard it's good. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I have that and Mala Noche on my, like, I'm going to watch those eventually list, and I've just never gotten to it.
I wanted to do Elephant as a teen movie, but we didn't really get to it.
I think Alex would like My Own Private Idaho, but I think you'd love it, Craig. Similarly to this, there's like this sort of this isn't a podcast about this, but like, so a lot of the dialogue in Idaho is like Shakespeare, like it's just literally Shakespeare, but they're like these homeless teens, and that sounds lame, but in practice, I thought it was really fun, and it actually took me a minute to like realize why they're speaking so strangely, because like it's not like, I guess it's not literally like wrote Shakespeare, but they're like speaking Shakespeareanly about like doing heroin in like the street,
like Romeo and Juliet.
So it has so it has like a similar like formalist interest with in terms of like performance, as opposed to, you know, maybe like literally like, you know, filmmaking and screens here, but like in that one it has this sort of thinking about like acting and humanity in that way.
I'd love to see more. Like later on, I kind of learned that he's known for kind of more experimental stuff. Growing up, I always thought of him as like, I never saw Good Will Hunting, but like as the Good Will Hunting guy, and sort of just thought he did like quasi indie Oscar bait dramas. But no, I guess there's like a lot more to him than I really thought.
Yeah, I think I think the expectation that I had walking into this versus what I got was really stunning. Having Matt Dillon here, that's his name, right? Matt Dillon here, I'm like, okay, here's Matt Dillon. When does he become a sex pest? And it's like, oh no, he like
this is Wild Things.
Well, yeah, because I'm so poisoned by our kind of history with him being the teacher in Wild Things. Instead, you have this like just razor sharp performance from Nicole Kidman. It is really, 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 really tremendous. I mean, she is there's a lot about this movie that is fantastic, like Joaquin Phoenix and so on, but she's the kind of center of gravity that everything like rotates around, and we're getting to like see the world kind of outside of her and how it like spins and twists, but like she is just on it here, and it's incredible.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned Election, because I think for as much as we've like as much as I've decried like satire as like a rhetorical tool on this podcast, I think the 90s are probably like the heyday of the black comedy, of the satirical comedy.
Right. Quentin Tarantino came out and just broke everyone's brains for a decade.
Death to Smoochie is like, what if Barney said fuck?
But I mean, in this decade, you do get it a lot. You know, a lot of the grotesqueries of American society, you know, in Election, in this, in Dick. Did Dick come out in the 90s? I think it did.
Yeah.
In Drop Dead Gorgeous, it's just like really, like this was the time to sort of like comment on how fucking weird it is to be in American society.
How many goddamn black comedies about American life did we watch? Jesus Christ.
The Chum Scrubber.
Oh my God, dude. Dude, I think there's only two kinds of movies.
But I mean, this one is, I mean, it's just to sort of like pick it apart a little bit. Like she is, this movie's not subtle, right? So it's like there's a repeating refrain in this movie where it's like, to matter in America, you have to be on TV, or like to be, you're good if you're on TV. And it's like, it's like saying the quiet part loud, but like in a really effective way. As far because it's revealed in this movie because Lydia is literally telling you what Suzanne's philosophy is to you, but it's just so informative, not just of her, but like how many Suzannes are out there. Like not how many like women have killed their husbands, but like the mundane psychopaths who will do anything to be on television because that will fulfill them as people, whose only ambition is to be in front of a camera. And, as that is our last great export, is putting people on TV. It seems more true now than ever.
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast, the podcast and Introducing, and they were talking about the book, The Song Machine, which is about like the last 25 years of like American pop music and like the like weird factory that it's become. Like the first thing you have to do is like find a pop star, and you have to find someone who like really wants it. Like they go into that in the in this movie as well, is like, to make it you have to really want it, and you have to be willing to like put up with a bunch of terrible stuff to want it. The predatory kind of aspects of that, and like the horrible contracts that young people sign without fully realizing what they like entail, is very, very reminiscent of that.
Yeah, there's that moment of apprehension because the character has a kind of disposition of, American like hard work ethic. If you're not the one grinding, someone else is going to grind and, overtake you or whatever. In this era, it's like self-help tapes, little cassettes, Matt Dillon's character comes home and shows his parents this little self-help cassette that she had given him and so on. But it's the meeting with that creep, the TV theorist creep, who tells a story about, this woman showed up to a job with a letter. The letter said that she sucks dick really good, but she's of only moderate intelligence. He whispers into her ear that it's someone famous. She kind of like, really? I watch her all the time. And rather than being kind of repelled by it, it's like, oh, okay, that is what I have to do. And she drafts her own letter. She doesn't deliver it to the Seinfeld character.
To Newman, right?
Yeah, Newman. There's this willingness of the character to fully drink from the well, while also, which necessarily means like dividing the world between people who say no to me, which is like distilled in her husband, right? Who kind of, he doesn't really say no to her. He says, like, what if we were realistic about things? What if, he has like some modest goals about like how he should live his life in the restaurant and whatever. He is a little callous about like her shutting down her dreams, although her dreams are kind of insane. But like, she sees the world as full of people that either say no or that can propel her forward. One of the scenes that really got to me was when she's in the classroom. She's somehow wormed her way into an actual classroom, and she's asking questions that I remember being so ridiculously like repeated like over and over again when I was young, especially like Columbine era, of like trying to like divine from kids like, what do you expect from sex? How is your education? What is your life like? Like these things that are meant to be like examinations of like the character or the soul of like America's youth, and them being the future. But actually they're weird, and they're like loaded questions, and they ultimately like dehumanize the people that are being asked that question.
Right.
And she doesn't.
The children
care.
that are being asked the question.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, and she doesn't care, right? She's they're merely a tool so that she can kind of advance. There's no humanity behind the questions. There's only the pitches, the potential of the film being picked up into syndication or whatever. Like it's a deeply like hollow and anti-human thing that this Nicole Kidman character represents. These young kids, like they come to her and they find warmth and familiarity, and Lydia's able to open up to her about this like sexual trauma that she had. And then as soon as Nicole Kidman character no longer has any use for Lydia, she says the most reprehensible things you could possibly say to a child. The trailer trash, blah, 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 blah. Their parents drink all day, et cetera, et cetera. It's just like, I don't know, it's a perfect encapsulation of the veneer of like civic-minded progress and like hard work. But it's actually like a soul-deadening thing that harms everyone around you.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is like the sort of like pervasiveness of her ideology, because like obviously hers is like malevolent and like cancerous, but like Ileana Douglas's character, she, although her dream isn't explicitly to be on TV, she's thrilled by the idea of being on TV for the ice skating. Lydia's character seems to believe herself that she's going to become a celebrity after this, like she's going to be. And like the last scene of the film when she's like, I'm the one who's going to become famous and not just sort of like a figure in like, a 2-week news cycle. I think that's sort of what, brings us back to this whole idea about this cultural rot in America, is because it's like present in these other people in the movie, but it's just evil. It's just evil in her.
Mm-hmm. It's like infectious in a way is kind of what I got from it, because as she's giving that speech, it does this sort of like the amount of frames of her keep like dividing, and so by the end of it you're seeing just a whole grid of her kind of saying this stuff, obviously mirroring like an array of televisions or something, like I don't like The Architect and The Matrix Reloaded. Yeah. So I liked that about it. I like that she also kind of like passed this gene on,
Yeah, memes. Memetically, she has made this.
The memes. I should have got that writing part. If I had it on a fucking soundboard, it would have been perfect.
If only we had a soundboard for this podcast.
Damn it, I have to spend $600 more on a mixer now.
One of Tim Cook's fingers curl.
The kids are interesting. So Joaquin Phoenix's character, Allison Fallon's character, and Casey Affleck's character, they're like, so this is based off like the Pamela Smart murder that she orchestrated in a similar way to this. Due to when this came out, this also kind of reminds me of like the West Memphis 3 a little bit. Like there's just this very like, there's something very like post-satanic panic, I don't want to say coding to these children.
Yeah.
Where they, they feel like they're being made public enemy number one just by the way that they're styled. I mean, they're just really great. Like I think this is the youngest I've seen Joaquin Phoenix. Yeah. I want to say.
Yeah, totally.
And he's just so, he's good all the time, but he's really excellent in this role as like this poor boy who's been entranced by Suzanne here.
I was shocked at how like fully in this role he was for his age too. Like I was kind of expecting him to not be like at his full power, but like let me tell you, his power level off the fucking scouter.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really, really, really wild. Like, as soon as he started speaking, I'm like, he already has the seasoned actor thing going.
He already had the juice, yeah.
He was born with the juice. We love it.
I think some people might just be like geniuses.
Yeah. just like an acting prodigy. He is probably top 5 living actors. Like, he's so fucking good.
Really good. Amazing.
Made the goddamn Joker somewhat compelling.
Yeah.
He's the goddamn Joker. Alex, what do you think about the anti-Italian propaganda in this movie where all the Italians do in fact know the mob?
I loved it. I thought it was so fucking funny. That reveal at the end, because the whole movie you're questioning like is like his family with the mob, and it's never like fully answered either way. And then out of the filmic ether, David Cronenberg appears and lures Nicole Kidman down to a sketchy bridge and murders her. And you just see the fucking zoom in on swim coach
Dan
Hedea's face as like, I don't know, like as David Cronenberg speaks Italian to him. Beautiful. Just chef's kiss in the purest ethnic way possible here.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I really.
it's
oh, go
really
ahead.
no, it's really funny. I mean, it's one of the I think it's one of the more successfully like laugh out loud funny things about the movie, and appropriately so because it's how she meets her end. You know.
Yeah, I also really love just filmically how that's done. So like she packs her little tape into a bag, and she has her little Pomeranian Walter, and she like goes down like a snowy bridge onto like a frozen river, and David Cronenberg's like, come on, we're going to talk about making Crash. We can do it over here. And so the camera is just sort of locked on this like the edge of the bridge, and Cronenberg like leads Kidman behind it, and then like they just hold on that shot for like another like 8 seconds. There's no like sound, there's no gunshot, there's no struggle, there's nothing, and then it just like cuts to these like I think it cuts out, it's like that shot to like the shack in like the distance, and then it cuts out to like a wide view of like a frozen lake.
Yeah,
it's so beautiful for like kind of like a darkly comic moment.
There's a really amazing shot in there too of like, it looks like maybe not an island but like a peninsula or something, and it's like a light kind of flashing in time with the Danny Elfman score.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Oh yeah. I don't think I've seen, that was one of the moments that really stuck out to me, is like I don't think I've seen that before, because I mean like it's he just leads her around the corner and it just stays there, and I feel like the expectation is for like, if you're not going to show it, there's going to be like a sound, there's
Right,
gonna be
right.
like the dog yipping or something, but like just to have
Like a hand falls out from behind the bridge or something.
yeah, exactly, just like, you know, and I'm not saying like a lesser movie would do that, but I'm saying that I wouldn't have thought to shoot it that way, but it's so elegant. I really liked it.
Well, so much of the fucking cinematography in this is inventive and beautiful. There's one of the most sublime day to night transitions I've ever seen. When I think it's Matt Dillon leaves for like a convention or something.
Yeah.
And Nicole Kidman walks into the living room and kind of just does like 5 poses as the lights around her change from
incredible
being lit by the sun outdoors to being lit in like with like the lights inside of her house.
Yeah,
mind-blowingly good.
It's like when Samara in The Ring is looking at the clock and like the footage of her in like the psychiatry chamber.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's how psychopath Nicole Kidman waits for like her teenage accomplices to come over, as she just stands in this gorgeous, she looks like
when you get to a section of Shenmue which you know, like the bar hasn't opened at night yet, and you just stand outside of it, is basically what she's doing.
This is the most inside baseball reference I can think of, because it only applies to people who have seen the inside of my aunt's house. But like, she has this. My aunt had this giant poster. I believe it was of a Diane Arbus like exhibition, and on the poster was this, I think, a self-portrait of Diane Arbus, and she's standing in sort of like a similar room. And she's dressed kind of cutely like Nicole Kidman is. And like, it's just, I was like, hey, that reminds me of the Diane Arbus poster in my aunt's laundry room. And she looks really good though. The pants are good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she gets to be the visual star of the film. I think there's a lot of expressive color elsewhere, but her outfits are so critical to this. Everything that she's wearing is so saturated. Everything is so precise. You know, she shows up to the shittiest local cable little outfit in a strip mall, and you know, she's dressed like fucking Jacqueline Kennedy. You know, it's like
well, she's dressed like someone you would see on television in an environment that of people who do not look like they should be on television.
And her presence is like deeply alienating to like Newman. You know, it's like, what? Stop! Like, please stop talking. Like, please stop talking like you're a television person. And I think that that's interesting because she is living as a television person. I mean, I really hate to use a colloquialism like this, but she has like main character syndrome.
Right.
To a sociopathic degree. And seeing her in these talking heads, it's interesting because the way the talking heads tell you about this story is like when we see Joaquin Phoenix, he's very obviously in prison or detention of some kind. I mean, he's got a name tag. He looks like the environment looks like he's been detained, so you kind of see where he's going. But the Nicole Kidman character is in a pink little number, and she's got pure white behind her. We later realize that she's been filming herself for David Cronenberg, the assassin. It's interesting. She becomes the kind of narrator, the controller of her own story, but this tape isn't going to end up anywhere. If anything, it's the thing that is getting her under ice, which is one of the more beautiful shots as well. Is the slow kind of push up the body as the snow is kind of wisping away at the ice, and you see her trapped under it, and then Illeana Douglas skating over it at the end is just like superb. It's just it takes this tone of comic death. There's nothing gruesome about it. She's frozen under a lake, but then the credits are rolling as Illeana and I watched the whole fucking thing as Illeana Douglas is skating. And it's interesting. It slowly becomes less funny. It becomes slowly darker or something like more melancholy. It's interesting what that end sequence does to the idea of her being dead under the ice and Illeana Douglas's celebration of skating on top of it. It's really just tonally, I keep saying this, but it's tonally really fascinating. It's not quite like anything I've ever seen before.
I just wanted to talk like a little bit more about like sort of the formalist like breakdown of that whole thing, because the movie does present like a documentary is being made about this, because like Newman is being interviewed, Illeana Douglas is being interviewed. There's like footage, and it's these really gorgeous sequences where it's like not the cameras that are filming the parents on a talk show, but it's like filming around the cameras in the talk show. So like you do get the sense that this is like a mockumentary that's being made about this event. And then when this sort of all breaks down, when you realize that she's just talking to herself in her living room, you're like, well, then who's interviewing anybody? And I mean, like, of course, part of that is, the formalist expression of how we in America consume the world around us is through these talking head interviews. But I love that like kind of breakdown where it's like everything just sort of terra firma is no longer beneath your feet. These talking heads are now very strange and alien right at the end there. And I think that's great.
It kind of reminded me of Parks and Rec like that, where they're using the format of these talking heads, but there's no like artifice of an actual show being created. It's just sort of a style that they adopted from The Office.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It was something that mutated off of The Office, but it didn't keep The Office's idea that there was a documentary film crew, which The Office would slowly kind of introduce more and more the idea that there is an actual crew and they are being filmed. Moments where Michael would like turn off his mic, right? So he could like speak privately or whatever. This movie doesn't have, Parks didn't have that. And then, this movie does like a reverse No Hi Banda where it's like there's nobody behind the camera. It's actually Nicole. And all these like, I think one of the Josh pointed out very importantly is that like the general I don't know how to say this without using like a metaphor, but I don't want to use a metaphor. They're all like extremely credulous about it, like to the end, like about being famous or something, or about being on TV and the import of being on TV. Everyone gathers around and watches her do this like a cutesy little presentation with construction paper map behind her, talking about the weather. It's interesting how mystifying it is. Of course, like the biggest interruptions of like us seeing a television are when Dan Hedaya smashes it with a baseball bat after Nicole Kidman's character claims that Matt Dillon did cocaine, which is when she's giving that speech, it's just she's like yes-anding herself, like it just like
During the speech.
just
Yeah,
it's like just
yeah.
making shit up on the fly. Like you absolutely cannot say things when you're about to go into a courtroom. You don't talk to you can't
Right.
do that.
Yep.
But she's just spinning that fucking yard because she can't help it. I mean, Dan Hedaya smashes that TV, which is deeply satisfying because I like to see what's inside those TVs.
Yeah.
I should have known it was a bunch of fibers.
Yeah,
I
Right.
know that.
Yeah. No,
It's
you
just
see
like-
the fibers. I don't think whenever I've seen a television being smashed cinematically, it's never like you never really see the components. It's just glass.
Yeah, it's the glass as though that we're only the only component of a television is like the pane of glass that you see and not the internal tangled nonsense. So that was interesting. And then also when they are fingerprinting the house, there's the American flag is billowing in black and white, and there's a police person dusting one little area of the surface of the television for a fingerprint while the American flag is billowing. Like it's those big touches that are like satire, dark comedy, whatever you want to call it. But they work here. They're trite elsewhere. Again, Death to Smoochie is like what if the Muppets said fuck.
They should say
Is
fuck.
it
Say
like
fuck.
Meet
It'd
the
be
Feebles?
What?
Do you ever see Meet the Feebles?
Meet the Feeble? No. Mm-mm.
The Peter
No,
Jackson
what is,
movie?
what's that?
Oh, that was the movie he made after Bad Taste, where it was like, it was basically a bunch of puppets that say fuck and have sex. They do drugs.
Crank yankers.
Pretty sure one of them gets AIDS. Not really what he's best known for these days.
But it's good, you know.
Yeah, it's better than Meet the Feebles.
I love the screens. I love all the variations of screens that we're seeing things through. You know, seeing the kids through these tapes, seeing their, Russell at one point, gets like knocked out by his father. That they do eventually start speaking and acting. We at least get to see moments of their lives which are not fun. It's like the way that she enters with her massive camera, this massive Scream-esque camera, shoulder mounted, like just exploiting these teenagers. It's really rotten, especially Lydia. I think Lydia and the Joaquin Phoenix character. It's like, Jesus Christ, like she is just evil, sociopathic. It's hard to watch.
Sorry, this is jumping back a second because now I have this brain worm and I can't stop thinking about it.
Meet the Feebles, right?
It is about.
Wait,
what the fuck you're talking about? It's the part where Ileana Douglas is giving the interview at the skate rink. I think it's right after Larry dies. And she's like upset, and she's like, "Can we stop for a second?" And now I'm like, "Who are you talking to?" The formalist touch is great. Like, I'm haunted by who she's talking to.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, the answer is us, the audience, but it's like it is a reverse Noah Banda.
And it's things like that become so ingrained in the format of like, hey, can we stop for a second? But we're still watching, right? So it's like, as though what Ileana Douglas has been expressing has been a bit formal or something. But when she breaks, that's when we're seeing like, quote unquote, like real emotion is when she's telling the camera to, can we take a break? But the camera is not breaking.
That's when the camera zooms in, baby.
Yeah, exactly. It's such a fascinating play on our kind of sensibilities because, when someone is put together and they're delivering this kind of story, even if it's emotionally charged, asking for a break and not getting it, which is such a thing. I mean, I feel like I see this in serious documentaries all the time where it's like, whoa, I don't want to talk about this anymore. And then we get to see the person cry or something. You know?
Oh, that's all like Making a Murderer.
Oh, completely.
Yeah, I've seen
completely.
enough of those true crime
And it's-
documentaries.
You know, it's
It's based is what it is.
it's icky. You know, it's like really, really.
I mean, it's exploitative.
It's manipulative.
It has to be.
Yeah, and it works. One of the things is that like I think it works. It's when we're seeing real emotion and the kind of dropping of like one's kind of self composure. Yeah, it's an ugly thing, but it works.
I think some of the just stray, like, expressive touches I love in this movie, when Joaquin Phoenix's character is about to shoot Matt Dillon's character, the camera, the television in the room is playing Nicole Kidman's like weather, because that's her alibi, as she's like doing the weather while the murder is taking place. And the camera just keeps like pushing in on her face, and she's looking directly into the camera.
Yeah.
To the point where like right before he shoots Matt Dillon's character, it's like framed around her face. It's like it's very Debbie Harry.
I was gonna say no. I think that's a direct reference to Videodrome, and because there's a scene earlier where she starts actually talking to Joaquin Phoenix earlier through the TV. I think that might be why David Cronenberg shows up at the end.
Holy shit! that has to be. That has to be. I mean, I get that like David Cronenberg has done this, and now is apparently at the moment billboards of him are up doing ads for Saint Laurent, right? The fashion
Yes,
company.
dude. Those ads are fucking ruining my life.
What are these?
There's billboards everywhere in Soho, featuring famous directors wearing like YSL clothing, and I walk to get salad, and I have to look at this like 50-foot image of Abel Ferreira, looking all styled up as if he didn't direct 9 Lives of a Wet Pussy, and I just want my salad. I don't want to think about him banging his girlfriend on camera, or that I've seen that. I just want my salad. Just want my salad, man. There's another one of Jim Jarmusch up by the bubble tea place. It's ruining me, man.
These ads are just for freaks. These are for the perverts that they want to buy YSL.
My theory is that I think all the other art forms want to be cinema. They're just stealing valor or something.
Yeah.
Certainly no other medium is as populist.
Right.
Like because fashion is inherently, due to its price point, fine art, obviously. Photography is like, it is theoretically populist, but it's mostly for weirdos with cameras. Drawing is for indoor children.
Yeah.
So like,
And
Unlike
but
cinema.
the cinema, you fire it up on your phone and your iPad, and it comes right to you. And yeah,
and you can see Salma Hayek on your TV. You can't do that at the Mona Lisa.
exactly.
Why did I think of Salma Hayek?
Yeah, that's a weird first actress to think about. I like her. I'm not gonna judge you for it, but
That's my secret listeners, that I'm always thinking about Salma Hayek.
Well, honestly, truly one of my favorite lines in all of 30 Rock. Her line, "Rapid, authoritative Spanish subdues white people." So, something that I return to often.
Yeah, so I love that expression. Was Videodrome, what, 5-6 years before this? Late 80s, early 90s?
I think it was like 84 or 85.
Oh, okay.
So maybe like 10 years before this or something. Maybe it's 86.
Yeah. I loved that. I loved James's fantasy sequence when he's like watching, I guess, like the broadcast screen, and he's imagining her like talking about like blowing him on the weather report.
Just doing a JOI to him, yeah.
Yeah. Fuck. Basic.
Craig got it.
Yeah. I know what those 3 letters stand for.
Basically, anytime that it plays with, fuck off. Anytime that it plays with her, people experiencing her through the television, I think is always a fun part of the movie.
The movie's so well shot too. Like, it feels like this isn't a knock at Serial Mom or anything, but it's like a similar kind of aesthetic. But I think like the visuals like are just so much more precise in this. The one that jumps to mind is there's this really, really dramatic shot of when they go get the gun and they unwrap the gun, like it in front of like the lake or whatever. It's like sunset behind them, and they're being lit from like must be some light above them as like they look up. It looks like almost like a painting or like the end of like Mishima Life in 4 Chapters or something. It being able to hit that kind of like higher kind of melodrama, but like hitting it really well in addition to hitting all these dark comedy beats, like that moment feels completely sincere to me. In this world of irony he's created. And I don't know, it was like a really deft kind of tonal switch with that one. I don't know, the characters have just decided that they're going to go through with the lady who manipulated them's plan.
And I mean, just to kind of pony off what you're saying, like I said this really early on, but like I think the editing in this movie's triumphant. It's like they'll just cut between these like interview segments to these more like traditional like if not shot reverse shot, just like a typical close to sort of watch Nicole Kidman. Like what comes to mind immediately is when Nicole Kidman's at like the editing bay and Newman comes over and she's like, well, no one ever says no to me, you know, that one.
Yeah.
Which is sort of like typically shot, and it'll just cut between those. It'll cut between interviews for like a sight gag. I'm thinking of the one where it's the shot that is through like a secret third camera on the talk show, and it like pans over from one of the characters and it pans over to like the monitor that's showing Suzanne's mom. That's a really great like shot, like without having to like bring the camera in. It just like pans over, and it's that like flat artifice of television that's still so exciting. Yeah, and it's just the movie just moves really good because of just how it's paced.
There's something about her like documentary that she's making. My note is really unhelpful. It just says lady accidentally made Decline of Western Civilization 4, but there's something so like aimless about the documentary itself. Like if I got the impression that she's getting almost nothing from these kids, like film wise or like footage wise, and she keeps going on and on about this like documentary that she's making. And it just strikes me as like she's not very good at doing it.
No, in fact, I would say she's extremely poor.
Right.
Especially for the camera. I was like, get a cameraman.
Right, like you are hand holding this interview. Are you insane?
Yeah, and I think what's the movie doesn't really hit this too hard, so you kind of it's a conclusion you have to draw. But I think what's great is she's like at best a medium talent.
Right.
Like so many like I mean like the majority of like sociopaths in any industry in America, but especially entertainment, like most people are at best medium talents,
like CEOs.
Yes, yeah, CEO, yeah, just any like a lot of people who are like strivers at the cost of, it doesn't matter who they hurt, who they step on, who they discard, are typically pretty middling talent anyway. And I think like, but those are the people that kind of make America run, right? So I think it's very, very pointed that she is this sort of so at her job. Like she clearly has no like idea what she's doing with this interview, because she's asking them such broad questions. She's like, what do you think about STDs?
Yeah.
And Casey Affleck's like, well, I'm personally against them. And I'm like, yeah, what else are you going to say?
Right.
Yeah.
So she clearly has no like swerve for interviewing. She has no interest in these children particularly. It's just like a thing that she thinks people will like. And so she asks them, it's like a simulacrum of a simulacrum. She's like, what would Barbara Walters ask these children? What do you think about drugs? And it's like, they're groovy. We like them. It's like, yeah, no shit. I bet you do.
You made that point so much finer than I was trying to.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's just, it's such a great bit of context that she's like kind of crappy at her job. The job that she murdered her husband for.
Yeah, and you like I love like I guess it's the final word on this is I love the glimmers of UC because they show so much nothing to them. And when she gets the tapes taken away by the police, she's livid, as if she lost anything.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because I mean, what she is aspiring towards, at least in the weather person job, and I mean, local news. This idea of local news being a serious inquiry or like breakdown of what's happening in the community, civic events, investigative journalism, when actually their inquiry is shallow. It's cookie cutter, and the self-seriousness with which they take themselves is ridiculous. I mean, it's all middling, but it has the pretense of being something that's important or valuable, and then you have people that are incapable of not. They're just like, they're completely credulous that this is a meaningful authority. That the television is a meaningful authority, and does engage in serious inquiry, which, like, the topic of like HIV gets broached, and of course the kids react with like homophobic jokes and whatever, but that's the idea, is like, it's because the question and the format is bad, that the answers aren't good. It's not a reflection on the teens, it's a reflection on the microscope that they're being put under, which is inadequate at best, and like destructive at worst.
Yeah, because it's clear that she isn't interviewing these children, she's interviewing the youth in America at large.
Exactly.
Right? And so and so how can these teenagers speak for the youth of America? And so she has no interest in them as people, she has no interest in them as subjects, just as like a human interest topic. And that's how you get questions like STDs. Where are we at?
Yeah. It's it's awful. It's awful. It's a terrible thing. And I think the movie does a very good job of I mean, I don't know. There's something about it that is very obvious, but is very subtle at the same time. The kind of wavelength that it's operating on in terms of satire. And again, I think Josh said it, or I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but I'm fatigued by it. As soon as it kind of like crosses in front of me, I'm inclined to be fatigued by it or something. But I was rapt by this whole film, and I think that's special. Because what I think and what makes me giggle and clap like a seal, that's when you're cooking with gas there.
That's why people are coming to the show.
Exactly.
And also to see what size your lodgings are this week.
Has the cage been expanded?
Has the cage been contracted?
It's always contracted.
Josh lied about the fact that the protein pellet dispenser is broken. Did he merely forget to buy protein pellets?
Folks, the protein pellet dispenser actually has never worked better. I simply got stoned and didn't speak correct.
Papa had to buy some organic CBD down at the store.
Do we have any final thoughts about... Oh, you know what? This is like... I see why you expected a different movie, Alex, because the poster for this is dreadful.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
it
yes.
says nothing about the movie.
Yeah.
It's
I mean...
Sexy Nicole Kidman being lit up by blue, right? Or is it red?
Yeah.
It's
with like
blue.
purple font, I think.
Yeah, it's a very like Adrian Lyne movie poster, but it's like not that tone at all.
No. I'd still count it for this show, No
completely.
fucking
happens.
I just see a lot of Joaquin Phoenix in it.
I just expected more of like an erotic thriller based on the poster.
Right. In the synopsis.
I don't read the summaries for these things.
Okay. I read the synopsis as well, and I was like, oh, okay. This sounds like a sex murder movie, which it is, but it's a different kind of one.
Yeah.
I give this 4.5 stars.
I give it 4. Yeah, I think it's great.
I initially gave it 3, but then I bumped it up to 3.5 earlier in the afternoon. I think I want to go up to 4. I think as I reflected on it, the better it got. I think mainly because I left with feelings of the Lydia character really bummed me out. and what like happens to her in this.
Yeah.
And it was more of a reaction to that than anything. But the more I've kind of sat with the film and thought about it over the day, I think it's a solid 4.
I'm good with a 4.
Me too.
Do we want to do the segment where we talk about things we've seen?
Yep.
I forget how we did it last time. Did I do like the accounts and stuff first?
Yeah, you do your socials and then kind of segue in.
Well, you can find the show wherever you get your podcasts. So that is Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. Folks, even YouTube. Even we have been absorbed by the YouTube mind virus. You can find episodes there with fun short clip visualizers over top, if that's how you like to listen to your podcasts. But no matter where you're listening to them, please rate us there. Please review us there. We like it. The algorithm likes it, and don't you want to soothe the algorithm? Like living with a colossal anaconda that you have to pet sometimes. Don't you want to soothe the algorithm lest it consume you?
Beautiful.
Thank you. You can also find the show on all the social medias, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd, user Swimfans Pod. And you can find me, myself, and I at those same places at user Amons, AMONNS. I just saw the Puss in Boots movie. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Probably, I'm going to be bold and say it has the best narrative thrust of any children's animated movie in the last 5 years.
Wow.
At least made in the West. I like the cat. The action's pretty good. It doesn't really dawdle. Concepts are fun. You could do worse for children's animation films.
You can find me at Craig Neeson.
Oh, sorry, Craig.
I was like, what's going on?
It stalls out right there. It never goes on. I'm never prompted to speak, so I don't.
5 real-time minutes of silence. Yeah.
You can find me at Craig Neeson on Instagram and Letterboxd, www.craigneeson.com. I recently watched Beau Travail for the first time since I was a teenager, and
slay.
Again, blown away by it. If anyone can find me a salt-encrusted cervid skull, you'll forever have my heart. I also watched, for the first time and the last time, the series 1899 on Netflix, which you're like, oh, is this like a Lovecraft horror thing? And it gets worse than that.
I was going to ask what you thought because I started it while working, but it's in like 7 languages, so I couldn't watch it while working.
Yes. So that's the trick of it, is you have to you cannot passively watch this thing. You have to actively watch it because it's in Cantonese, it is in French, it is in Portuguese at moment, Spanish.
I think like Dutch, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Dutch. Yeah, there's Dutch characters, and it's like, don't. It didn't get re-upped, and people are mad about it. I don't know why they're mad. I think some things, much like in the Pet Sematary fashion, some things are better off dead.
Some things should stay dead.
They should stay dead.
Sometimes dead is better.
Sometimes dead is better. Thank you. That's the one. Oh, Alex.
You can find me on Twitter.
we're like, there's an alternate universe where we're like the 3 worst relay racers, where we're like, I get to Alex, I try to pass a baton, and we just like strike up a conversation for a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna say we keep switching hands. Which one's grabbing the stick and which one's holding the stick, and we never quite get it past. Like,
yeah, I'm smoking a cigarette and strolling down the track.
Follow me online on Twitter, Diatron5, and on Letterboxd, Diatron. A movie I watched recently that I quite liked was a movie called 2LDK, which is a Japanese film about 2 struggling actresses as they sort of duel it out in their apartment. It's interesting because it's like one half of like a 2-movie diptych where the challenge was you can only have 2 actors that can only be in one space and they must duel. It's called Duel Project. I have the other one downloaded. I haven't watched it yet, but 2LDK is a lot of fun. It's also kind of depressing because both of them have been pushed to their limits far before they entered the film. I can't segue to anyone where I usually say Craig, so...
Oh, shit, I did them out of order.
Yeah,
What?
I don't know what to do. I'm afraid.
Okay, bye-bye. Two things. What are we doing next week?
This is my pick, so that would mean it is...
I picked the last.
No, it's me, I think.
Josh pick.
Okay, I'm either going to pick something or I'm going to see about a guess because I have a couple guests, just if they can come on in time.
Yeah.
So, what's taking us out?
No, something.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.